Hey everyone, Wags here from Eagle Dynamics, and in this video we're going to take a look at taxiing and taking off in the Viper. Now you may be thinking, well Wags, you forgot about the cold start video. Now don't worry Doug Masters, it's definitely coming, it's just that it touches on many different components of the Viper, and it'll probably be the last video we do before the early access release. In the meantime, we hope you enjoy this video of an important aspect of flying the Viper. Let's get started. Alright, so we're here on the ramp at Nellis Air Force Base, but before we taxi out to the runway, let's take care of a few things. First, we'll turn on nose wheel steering, or NWS, and that's indicated by the green light here. And when we have this enabled, it allows us to use the rudder pedals to steer the nose wheel, and I'll be using this to taxi on the ramp, the taxiways, and then the initial part of the takeoff until about 70 knots. And we'll do a taxi check before we head out. All flaps are normal. Manual trim needles are centered, engine is set to pry, air brakes are closed, fuel panel is normal, the F-TID is below 650C, and the oxygen is set to on. Let's get going. So the G engine is a pretty powerful one, so we just need to bring it over the idle a little bit, and we'll do a toe brake test, release, nose wheel steering test. And we'll take the taxi turns at about 10 knots, and we can do the straightaways at about 25. And if you can, when you're taking the turns, it's best to try to do so at idle throttle, so you're not knocking anything over on the ramp. And to keep on the taxiway lines, the nose wheel strut is just behind the seat. So as long as you essentially keep your butt over the lines, you can pretty easily keep on them. And this lesson, we're in a Cat 1 stores configuration, just a couple of sets of air-to-air missiles. And between that and a pretty long runway, we'll go ahead and do a military thrust takeoff. But if we were, say, at Cat 3, heavier load, or a shorter runway, then we do an afterburner takeoff. Stop here at the hold. Okay, we can now go ahead and arm up the seat. Check that probe heat is on. Traffic check. Actually, before we take the runway, let's take a look at the navigation HUD. So on the left side we have our airspeed. Currently it's in calibrated airspeed indicated by the C. And on the right we have our altitude is barometric. Below that we have our radar altitude indicated by the R. And below that we have our low altitude warning. Right now it's set to 500 feet, and that's why it's flashing, because we're below it. So let's actually reset that. We'll go to allow on the ICP, and we'll punch in 0, enter, and now we have it set to 0. And we'll go ahead and go dobber left to return back. Now below that we have our slant range to the selected steer point, time to selected steer point, the range of the steer point, and the steer point number. Along the center we have our roll angle, our pitch ladder, our angle of attack bracket, our heading tape, our horizon line, and on top of each other here is the gun cross and the flight path marker, and to the left of that is the tadpole, which points in the direction of the steer point. Below that is our current G. Then down here is our Mach, our peak G since the last reset, our master mode, currently nav, and then our bullseye information. Now before we take off, let's go ahead and get rid of the roll angle indicator and put the DED on the HUD. That's better. Okay, let's go ahead and take the runway. We'll line her up. And you notice that diamond on the HUD, that indicates the location of our steer point. Toe brakes. And at this point we can turn on the FCR, the fire control radar. Check that the brakes are closed. Probe heat is on. At this point now we'll go ahead and toe brakes down, and we'll bring the RPM up to 90%. Now, an important part of the takeoff, of course, is going to be the takeoff airspeed. And let's take a look at a chart about that real quick.
So in this little chart, along the bottom, we have our gross weight. So in this mission, I have a gross weight of about 28.4 thousand pounds. And then on the left side, we have the suggested takeoff speed. So it's just a matter of finding your weight, following it up until it intersects the curve, and then following that to the left to find your recommended takeoff speed. So in this case, it's going to be 155 knots.
Okay, so we can see that we're going to have a takeoff speed of 155 knots. So we're going to check now to see that our FTID is below 980 C. That looks good. Nozzles look good. So we can release the brake and accelerate to military power. And we're looking for 70 knots, and nose wheel steering off. Now we're looking for 155. And take off. Once the positive rate of climb is established, we'll go gear up. And then we'll have a pitch angle between 8 and 12 degrees to climb out. And we'll be looking for a departure speed of 350 knots. Looks like our no fuel imbalance. That looks good. FTIT looks good. And that's a little look at how you taxi and take off in the Viper. I very much hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.